Hello, everybody. It was nice. I don't know if Chicky is still there. Anyway, if you're there, it was nice seeing you again. It's true, she came and we meditated together. And then unfortunately, as soon as that introduction to this practice occurred, then I had to leave the country for about 6 months. And I just came back, well, about a couple months ago. But anyway, we're on lockdown now, so nobody's meeting anybody. So I'm very happy to be a part of this Youth 2.0. And the only thing that I can think of when I hear 2.0, right, is then I guess what's next must be 3.0. And then maybe 4.0, 10.0, 100, 1,000, million, billion, trillion. Because what comes next? Okay, so we've managed to improve ourselves. We've made ourselves as best as we possibly can. And having done so, then there's nothing left except to do it again and again and again and again. Because I don't know how many updates, Apple has had since iOS first came out, many, right? So this is what life is about. And I recall one conversation I had with a famous Carnatic musician, Indian classical Carnatic violinist. And what he said impressed me very, very much. He said that amongst musicians, there is not so much of a difference between a master musician and a beginner, and everybody in between. Because all of us are seeking perfection. We're striving toward perfection. We're moving toward perfection, and none of us are there yet. Perfection is an elusive goal, and we are all marching toward it. And therefore, the difference between a beginner and a master is what? Only a matter of degree and nothing more. What unites us? That we are all marching in the same direction, that we all have a higher ideal, that we're all refining our art or refining ourselves. Because now we're not just talking about musicians or artists, but we're talking about our lives and our beings, refining our beings. Right? So that's what unites us. So because of that, to me, the most important thing is that we learn how to walk this path of self-refinement, moving toward perfection. It doesn't matter where we are on that path at all, but the trajectory has to be there. And if the trajectory is right, then we'll move further and further and further. So we have to master this art of refinement. We have to master this art of transformation so that we do it again and again and again. So that's what I think unites us with, a great master. That a great master has mastered the path. And we can master the path while we're still beginners. You can be at a very beginning stage of spirituality, but you're mastering the path to such an extent that you're going to continue. And that's the important thing. So I think that attitude is the number one thing. In this book, The Heartfulness Way that was mentioned, I've asked many questions to the global guide of heartfulness, Kamlesh Patel, who is fondly known as Daji, right? I've asked him many questions. And, he's given so many answers. And this topic, and I think we didn't have this conversation in the book. I think it didn't make it into the book. But at one juncture, he mentioned to me that the people who really managed to fly in this, spiritual field, who managed to soar, are the ones who find themselves unable to tolerate all of their imperfections, and who are constantly trying to overcome them as well. Now, that has to become a kind of an innate thing in our lives, I feel, where your heart demands it of you. We have to sensitize our hearts. You know, we speak a lot about clarity of mind. I think the real thing is clarity of heart, where your heart tells you yes very clearly, it tells you no very clearly. Then you're really guided in life. When you can rely on your heart to tell you where to go, or you're able to listen to your heart when it tells you not to do something. Right. So for all of this transformation and refinement, and 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, billion.0, toward infinity, because there's no end to it, there are some essential tools that can help us so well. Right. And for me, this heartfulness practice, this collection of practices, which we call heartfulness, handful of exercises, represent the most potent tool that I am personally aware of. It is good to have an idea that I can change myself, that I can improve myself, move toward perfection. But then in the actual doing of it, that's another story altogether, right? It's not so easy. You have a self-help industry, a whole industry, dedicated to this instinct of people to want to improve themselves, to help themselves improve and overcome things, right? And I think it's a $10 billion industry. It shows the need for it. It shows the demand, but it also shows the difficulty of it. Because if it were so easy, we wouldn't need, hundreds of books. Maybe we'd need 1 book, 2 books. Maybe we wouldn't need any books, right? We wouldn't need any teachers. It would just be so natural for us. So why do we need help? Why do we need guidance? Why do we need a seminar like this? Because there seems to be some resistance to change. That resistance comes from within myself. I can know what the best thing is to do, but does that mean I do it in all cases? Of course not. And, when I'm a kid, my parents will tell me you should behave like this, you should make sure you study, etc., etc., etc. And they can tell me not to tell lies. They can try to educate me. If this were really effective, the whole world would be a paradise now, because everybody's parents have told them they should be the very best, And I think even criminals, they tell their kids also to be honest. So that is not everything. This teaching and learning, it has its limitations, I think. So problem is that you can try to make change at a conscious level. But the roots of your thinking, the roots of your emotions, the roots of your behaviors, they exist at a subconscious level, right? And the subconscious is more powerful than what you think consciously, what you attempt consciously. That is subconscious influence. It's an automatic influence. It's an instinctual influence. Subconscious is the home of instinct, right? That's what you do without trying. Right? So automatically, when you revert to instinct, then you're reverting to your old tendencies, your old way of being. And all of a sudden we find, oh, I've failed at changing myself. So if we're going to succeed at this venture, that means we need an approach that is based, well, it's holistic, We need an approach that's holistic and that works at subconscious levels, not just at conscious levels where it's convincing me to do things differently or to behave differently or act differently in any way that's not authentic. It's authentic when it comes from inside, not when it comes from outside, So, we can tell because, so many of the time in society, society rewards us for, behaving nicely, right? They honor us. They say, oh, you're a good person, right? You're a great person. And people shower us with rewards and respect and honor and things like that. And of course, we enjoy this. And then, but on the other hand, if we don't behave according to the expectations, the external expectations, then there's punishment waiting and shame waiting and all these other things. So there's this fear and there's this temptation at the level of society, right? So that's society trying to keep a check on us, right? And that's necessary precisely because this positive way of being hasn't come from within us. It hasn't manifested itself in a natural way. So the idea is that if it's going to be natural, this change has to come from inside, not from outside, not because your parents tell you, or your priest tells you, or your teachers tell you, or the government tells you, or anybody. It has to become because your heart tells you. Your heart must demand it, right? And then, of course, we have to have help and tools available to us to get over this inertia where we can, this change, that we're trying to make, where we get over this, these subconscious barriers that I was just speaking about. So for me, that's where heartfulness helps, right? Especially this technique we call cleaning. Those of you who practice heartfulness know well what I'm speaking about. Others, well, I'll tell you. So in one of these conversations I had with Daji, maybe for the book, maybe it didn't make it in the book, he gives an example where you're sitting on a plane and you're sitting in an aisle seat and everybody's filing past you. And all of a sudden, as you see every person who's going by, you form an opinion about that person, right? It's a natural thing to do. You say, oh, I like this person, or I don't like that person. I like the way they dress. This person, they don't look like a nice person. This person is taking so much time because they're trying to stuff bags up ahead and they don't fit there. So you react, and all these thoughts and opinions that we're having about others, they all contain a certain positive or negative quality, right? When you think about somebody, when you have an opinion, it's a positive opinion or it's a negative opinion. Right? It's not an opinion if there's no positive or negative emotion attached to it. And when we think, our thought tends to have a sort of positive or negative charge. Now, sometimes it's very extreme. You become exuberant with happiness, or you hate something, right? That's extreme, or can be very subtle. Just a slight distaste. Right? So whether it's subtle or whether it's extreme, still that emotion is there, and it's either positive or it's negative. And that is the emotional content of your thought. Now, what happens after that incident is finished, right? Now the person has gone by, or you've had a conversation with somebody, you didn't like what they said, but they walked off and you went your own way. Now it's over. The emotion now appears to evaporate, but does it really evaporate? That's the question. And the answer is actually, I think we'll all be familiar with this, where later on, much, much later, something can happen that reminds you of some other incident, that reminds you of a previous incident, and that brings up an old emotion. And you realize that, no, that emotion didn't evaporate. It was inside me this whole time. It was just undercover. And it was undercover, and it was waiting for this right stimulus to come along and awaken it, reawaken it. And now this emotion comes out and reawakens itself. Maybe you meet somebody who reminds you of somebody who mistreated you earlier, right? And all of a sudden you don't like that person. Now, this new person, they're absolutely new. They've never done you any harm. They might even be somebody who becomes your best friend. But because they remind you of somebody who you met from the past who you didn't like, you automatically don't like them. Now, what is this other than bias? It is only bias. It is only prejudice. And it is based upon the past experiences that we've had. So our past experiences, and more specifically, our emotional reactions to our experiences, what have they created? right? They've created a sort of lens or a filter through which I view everything in the world that I see. My whole reality I view through this filter, this lens of the past, and through this conditioning that the past has had upon me. And as a result of this conditioning, I'm unable to see you as you are. I see only what I expect to see from you, based on my past. So, what can I say? I'm living in the past, and I'm unable to see the present moment. So this is the situation we're in. And this is nothing other than prejudice. This is nothing other than bias, living in the past. So how am I going to be creative and do things in a novel way? How am I going to do things in a way that nobody's ever done before? You know, I was asked also to touch upon this idea of success. What is success other than finding a way to do something which is innovative? So if you're only stuck in the past, then you're never going to see that new way of seeing things, that new way of perceiving, which requires that you see things as they are. So how to remove these filters from the past? How to remove these biases? This emotional residue which clouds my vision. The yogis, they gave it a name. They called it samskara. They called it impressions. Impressions are nothing other than the emotional residue which I accumulate in my day-to-day life, and which then guides my future reactions, forms a blueprint for all of what I see and do and say. So these samskaras, well, we remove them. And that's one of the great benefits of heartfulness, that as far as I understand it, is the only system of which I am aware personally, where you can remove this load, this burden of samskaras, of emotional residue, in, not, piecemeal, but in bulk. So you can remove these things. I'm not saying it's impossible without heartfulness. You can remove them. Let's say you go to a psychiatrist, and that psychiatrist, they walk you through a process, a psychological process, wherein you're able to forgive somebody who wronged you. Now, that is the removal of an emotional burden. That is the removal of a samskara. But that's only one, and it's taken you months to do that, years to do that perhaps. But this is a technique which you do every single day, and in so doing, the load is lightened, the load is removed. And you may not even realize what has been removed, but you know something has been removed, and why? Because you feel it. You feel light. You feel joyful. And this is the reason that people do it. I can give you so much philosophy about it. I can give you arguments, whether convincing or unconvincing. Doesn't matter. That's not the reason people do it. The reason people do it is because they feel it. They feel the lightness and the joy after having done so. And that's how you know that it works. That's how you know you are carrying a burden. Oftentimes we don't realize that we're carrying a burden until the burden is removed. It's the opposite of that famous saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. Are you all familiar with that saying? The straw that broke the camel's back. That means that you have this poor camel and you keep adding pieces of straw to their back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now eventually, I don't know, 10,000th piece of straw, the camel's back won't be able to support that weight anymore. And all of a sudden, back breaks. But here it's the opposite. Here you're removing the pieces of straw. And all of a sudden, you're not removing pieces of straw, you're removing bales of straw. And after removing these bales of straw, you just feel the contrast to the heaviness. It's a wonderful thing. That's all I can say. It's a beautiful feeling. And so, unfortunately, we become addicted to it too. It's good in the beginning, but not always. But in any case, you see, I'll just take a small diversion and say that we have a lot of such experiences when we begin this practice. As a result of the cleaning, we can feel so light. We also meditate. As a result of meditation, we can feel so secure. We can feel like we're in, almost like you're in the womb again, so protected. You can feel so peaceful as a result of meditation. So many experiences like that come, but what are these experiences anyway? They're just, like I said, like the reason you feel lightness when you do cleaning is because of this contrast to the burden that you were carrying previously. And similarly, the peace that you feel when you meditate. You feel that peace only because previously you were so restless in life. And this restlessness, just a drop of peace, and I feel as if I've been plunged into an ocean of peace. Such was my restlessness. So it is these contrasts which impress us so much, I think, when we start this practice, when we start walking on this path. But as the lightness continues, in general way, when these samskaras are removed, where is the burden that you'll be carrying? And how much contrast will you feel? So therefore, in the lack of this contrast, will cause you to stop having such experiences. And it just becomes a natural thing now. It just becomes a natural thing. So that's why I said it's not good to become addicted to anything, whether even to spirituality, because then we're always going to be trying to repeat experiences, right? Such as the feeling of lightness when you do the cleaning. But that would be going backwards. So there's cleaning. This helps us, removes the roots of our emotional tendencies, habits of thinking, and ultimately our behaviors. Makes us, what can you say? It makes us sattvic. It makes us very sattvic because, you must have heard in Indian philosophy, the three gunas, right? You can have somebody, what does sattvic mean? What's the opposite is tamasic. Tamasic is when you are like so static, you're like a donkey, that you try to push this donkey and it doesn't want to move, right? It refuses to move. So that means that you're not trying to adapt to situations. You don't ever want to change. You just want to stay as you are, right? So the opposite of that is being very sattvic, right? That means that you're always very flexible and always very joyful. You're not fighting against everything. You're going with the flow. So when you remove these tendencies from within your heart, which make you, very insistent, and and make you act in a certain direction only and think in a certain way only, in a very rigid way, you remove that, and there's so much flexibility now in you, and therefore you can be very adaptable. You can be very resilient, which I know is a buzzword these days, resilience, right? And resilience, that's of course what our ancients just called being sattvic. It has nothing to do with what you cook in the kitchen, I mean, of course there's sattvic food, but I mean, Swami Vivekananda famously said that religion had gone into the kitchens. It's much more than that, right? Anyway, so this is the value of cleaning, the value of meditation, getting guided by your heart. And of course, meditation, as we practice it in Heartfulness Way, is not just meditation, but meditation with something we call yogic transmission. And I want to give you a little taste of that experience today, before we finish our session here. I'd like you to have a taste of that experience. And I pray that you'll have a taste of that experience when we meditate. And what am I talking about anyway, yogic transmission? Well, we're all familiar with meditation. At least we all know that it involves sitting down and maybe crossing your legs and closing your eyes. Beyond that, we don't know much about it. And there isn't much to know either. It's a very simple thing. But meditation with yogic transmission, what is that? Well, let us say it's a way out. It's a way of freedom. And it's a way to experience and have inner conviction about things. So it's a way to be free from the burden of beliefs, right? That's what it is. It means I experience something for myself. Now, for instance, people can go around and say God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. Or some people may say God is within me. It's a very evolved view. People may say aham brahmasmi, right? They may say God is within. But it's only a belief until you experience it. So how are you going to experience it? Problem is, we don't experience much. There are many things that are all around us, and yet we don't experience them. There may be radio waves streaming through the air around me. I don't experience them. I need the receiver to be able to experience it. Or there may be, there's oxygen, of course. There's air surrounding all of us, obviously, right? Of course, you're breathing. But are you aware of that air that's surrounding you at all times? Well, when there's a breeze, you become aware of it. Now you feel it. So that's where you can sit in the hot summer. Now it's getting to be summertime in India. And I'm in India, right? So, you may sit underneath a ceiling fan. And now you feel relief because you can feel this breeze, right? And similarly, the divine is everywhere. The divine is also inside you. Do you feel it? No. But transmission, when you sit with somebody who can impart this yogic transmission, that is like sitting under a ceiling fan. And now they're not doing anything special, but they're just they're directing this current of air towards you. This divinity is now being directed and focused upon your heart to the extent that you can feel it. So now you're able to feel it with a little assistance. So that's what meditation, so it's meditation. When you sit with a trainer, it's meditation with yogic transmission. And then you're able to experience something more than you were when you were on your own. Of course, later you'll be able to experience it on your own too. So this is what I propose to try with you now. And so let me explain how we meditate very briefly, because then we'll meditate a short while. Here we meditate on the heart. It's heartfulness after all. And we don't just meditate on the heart, but we meditate on the idea that there's a source of light within my heart. When you close your eyes, that's what you'll suggest to yourself. You'll say, oh, there's a source of light within my heart. You'll think to yourself. And having thoughts this, all you will do is just settle your attention there on your heart. And what I mean is the place where your physical heart is, there on your chest, left side of your chest. And now you do nothing but see what you feel. See what sort of experience gradually starts to emerge over the course of your meditation. It'll be something very subtle, but there will be something. So in meditation, we become very receptive. We're not doing anything. We're not trying to maintain some sort of idea. We're simply being receptive and paying attention to what we feel there at the level of the heart. And we, of course, have to use the heart to feel something, because what else are we going to use? So this is when I'll ask you to start meditation, this is what you'll do. Now, the first step, which I will ask you to do, is to switch off the phone. Okay. And now I will guide you through a series of steps by which your body will become relaxed. And then we'll meditate silently for some minutes. And I'll tell you when to begin meditation. I'll tell you when it's concluded as well. So please start by closing your eyes very gently. And bringing your attention to your toes, you can wiggle your toes and relax them. Now you can even feel a current of healing energy entering the soles of your feet from Mother Earth. This energy from Mother Earth enters into the bottom of your feet and has the effect of relaxing them. And it continues. This energy moves only, it moves upward. And it relaxes every muscle as it goes, every body part as it moves, relaxing your ankles. And let your lower legs relax. Relax your knees. And your upper legs, your thighs. Relax your hips. This energy from Mother Earth continues moving upwards, relaxing your waist. Relax your abdominal muscles. And all the muscles in your chest. Let your whole back relax completely, from top to bottom. Relax every muscle. And now your shoulders. Let them feel so relaxed. They're like liquid. They're like water just melting in relaxation, which is moving down your arms, your triceps and bicep muscles, your shoulders, and now your elbows, and moving down to your forearms. Every muscle in your forearm is becoming relaxed. Relax your wrists and hands and fingers. You can even feel that energy from Mother Earth flowing out from your fingertips. Let your neck muscles relax. And your jaws. Let your lower jaw drop. Let your tongue relax. Relax all the muscles in your face and let there be so much softness around your eyes. Relax your ears and earlobes. All the way to the crown of your head. And now your whole body is relaxed. You can become aware of your body. And if there's any place which requires more attention, which requires deeper relaxation, let that energy flow and saturate that area. Bring it into balance. And suggest to yourself that your attention is already settled and centered in your heart. In your heart, where a source of light is already present. You cannot see this light. You cannot imagine it, but you can feel it. And automatically it is drawing you inward, allowing you to become drowned within yourself. If thoughts come, it's okay. Don't fight them. No need to entertain them. Please start meditation. That's all. And I encourage you to come out of meditation gradually. You don't feel like opening your eyes yet? You don't have to open your eyes. If you don't feel like listening to me talk anymore, you can just close your laptop. Just come out gradually. And even when you do open your eyes, still feel as if you're meditating. Okay, so now, I suppose I've taken up all the time. There may be questions, I don't know.
We have time for a couple of questions if you would like to jump into that.
Can I ask first, I think I sent one slide, right? I mean, I did, I don't know if it was received. In case some of you would like to experience meditation with transmission more, I mean, again and again and again, here's a link that I put on the slide. It's for heart spots at heartfulness.org, okay? Heart spots, that means that's how you can find a trainer. You can locate a trainer near you. Of course, in these lockdown scenarios, distance means nothing. Just locate anybody and they can give you a remote, session like this, okay? And they'll do it for free because money isn't, you can't sell spirituality, it's said, and this is something that is, nobody charges for this. So this is absolutely just a gift. So get in touch with a trainer and they'll happily support you. Or you can download Heart's app and see it there. Android or Apple. And there it's like Uber for meditation, where you want to meditate with a trainer, experience yoga transmission. You just hit the button, yeah, I want to meditate. And after about 4 minutes, but by the time 4 minutes elapses, some trainer somewhere in the world get the message and you'll hear a notification start meditation. And so you can experience it like that too. So I just wanted you to have that knowledge. Okay.
We had a couple of different questions on how do we know that the heart is talking to us, or how do we tune into it? So I think I'll sum it up by saying, when we try to tune into the heart, how do we know that it's not the mind and the clutter in our mind or our mental predispositions that are talking to us? How do we know that it's really the heart?
It's a good question. But I think if that question arises, you can just assume that it's the clutter in the mind. Because the heart's voice is unmistakable. It comes not as a voice, not as a thought, like all other thoughts, but it comes as feeling. It comes as an inclination or disinclination, where you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel right. Haven't you ever had an experience like that, where around a certain person you just didn't feel right being associated with them? That's the heart telling you something, right? So I think everyone has experienced it. So now it's like putting a name to a face. We know that feeling. Now let's understand that that's a valid signal, and that's the heart signal. So let's pay attention to that from now on. And this active meditation will sensitize you more and more to that. So you'll actually find that its signals are there every moment. And that guidance is, who doesn't want perfect guidance every moment?
It's great. It does go off like a fire alarm when the heart is telling you, don't do this. Yeah. So another one is, besides navigating this technique of listening to the heart, how do we incorporate it into our lives and learn to make it a natural process?
Just incorporating it into life. I understand the question. I feel like, to me, it feels like incorporating breathing into your life. Now I realize that might be kind of, and I don't mean that to be a flippant answer, because I realize time is an issue. Like Chicky was saying before, time is a serious issue. But at the same time, when we have undergone repeated experiences of this thing, to the extent that it starts to feel like you won't be, it's like the equivalent of not doing it is like not breathing, then at that moment, we no longer have to worry about how to incorporate it into our life. Previously, we had to worry about finding time for it. But once it becomes a need, then you no longer have to worry about it, because that need always prioritizes itself, right? So you have to give it the chance initially. I would say that for people who have difficulty finding time, even if you don't have any time at all, at least give it 1 minute. You can give it 1 minute for sure, right? Add up all the times in the day that you check Facebook. It'll be much more than 1 minute, or Instagram or whatever. So at least give it 1 minute, and make it 1 minute the same time every day. Make it an appointment. That regularity is key. And then one day you'll find you to say, sit for a minute, and you come out of it after an hour. You know?
That's great. We are almost at the end of the session, so I think if you have any final words, we can close it here. Most of the questions were along the same lines. All right.
I said all my final words in the
case.
beginning. So.
But the sense I get from your second answer is that it will start to become natural on its own. But I guess that means that in the beginning, it might be a little more conscious, and we might have to prioritize it and give it time.
Yeah, spend some time around people
Is that inaccurate?
who really love it. I think spend time around people who love it. It really can wear off on you. I was really personally benefited when I started by that. My trainer, you know, I had two trainers. I started one place and then immediately moved somewhere else. Both of them had been meditating in this way since the early 70s. And I moved to a place where I was literally 6-hour drive from the closest trainer. And in those days, nobody was doing these remote sort of sessions like we just did now. So the only way to do it was to drive 5 or 6 hours. And I did it once. I was going down to Boston for some other reason. And I went there, and I met up with the trainer there, and I ended up staying like 3 or 4 days at their house. And that place just had the most spectacular feeling about it, and an atmosphere about it. And that person just radiated something. And I just felt so good. I just felt so good. And we didn't talk much, you know, but I just felt so good. And I had sitting after sitting after sitting for a few days. And so it became a thing that I did. Every month I would go and spend a week at this guy's house. And something just wears off, some passion for it wears off, some intense interest and fascination. And then, you know, there are books there. There are great books by Sri Ramchandra, you know, and I just was, you know, voraciously consuming these books and getting just so much more excited about this whole thing, about the possibilities. I had no idea what sort of possibilities there were, and now I was learning about them, and I was getting validated at some minute level inside myself. So it was like absolutely new dimensions were opening up. So associate yourself with people who are passionate about this. That's what I would suggest, and you'll see. Yeah.
That's great. That's a nice way to move into making the right kind of connections with people. So it's not only an individual exercise, but it also we bounce this off of other people too, and people are still inspired when we do something like this.
Agreed, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Joshua. I'm sure people appreciated this session. And
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All the best, everybody.